Good morning. Welcome to the Minnesota Bike Walk Leadership Network webinar. I'm Natalie Gilly with the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. Welcome to the webinar. I'm going to start sharing my screen here and we'll get started. So today's webinar is on Wednesday, February 16th, 2022. And our title of the webinar today is Maintain the Momentum of the Bike Boom. Put your club on the map. So this is an exciting time of the year when we're getting ready for spring. Believe it or not, it's around the corner. And today we'll welcome our speakers to talk a little bit about that transition of the seasons and getting ready for 2022. If you'd like to introduce yourself, we invite you to use the chat box and put your name and your location. And we do have an icebreaker question from each of our presenters today. So if you'd like to also add the answers to the following two questions into the chat box, we will be watching to see who has them correct, and we'll let you know later in the webinar. So the first question is, what neighborhood in Minneapolis can Oedipus Brewing be found? The second question, what town in Minnesota has the greatest participation in 30 days of biking per capita? Put your answers in the chat box and we will reveal the winners of our icebreaker questions as we get into our webinar. The speakers are going to talk about that. So we have people from St. Cloud, St. Paul, Rochester, Olmsted County, Wabasha, Fergus Falls, Elgin, Minneapolis, and other places throughout the state here. I see a Detroit Lakes jumping on here, another Minneapolis, another Fergus Falls, Jackson. So the speakers, those are the folks that are on the call today from locations throughout the state of Minnesota. So welcome to everyone to the webinar today. The purpose of our webinar for the Minnesota Bike Walk Leadership Network is to connect local bike walk leaders to share stories and ideas about how they're lifting up the walking and biking culture in their communities. We have a land acknowledgement statement, which you'll see on the screen. At the bottom is a link. And if you'd like to click on the link, Ted will place that in the chat box. You can see that link and you can find out what native land you're currently located on. This is Black History Month, and so I want to take a moment to read our anti-racism statement that we have here at Bike MN. The Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota is deeply invested in our vision of a safe and healthy future where getting around on foot and by bike unites people, eliminates inequity, and creates thriving communities. So in 2022, we have an excellent lineup of topics here and are excited to welcome in March Alexandra Huchin, who will be talking about holding space, being your whole self on a bike. And then we have topics lined up for many of the months coming down the line, topics including e-bikes, welcoming our new education team. So more to come on folks who are being hired at Bike MN who will make up our new education team. So stay tuned. Featuring local events, our Bikeable Community Workshop, a community feature on that, some back to school information in the fall, adaptive equipment. West Central Minnesota is doing more engineering work, and we'll discuss, potentially discuss vehicle design and advocacy later in the year as well. So great topics coming down the line. If you're currently joining as a guest today and would like to join our Bike Walk Leadership Network, you're welcome to email me at natalie@bikemn.org or go to the link you'll see in the chat box to join through our website, bikemn.org, and then you can fill in a little information and get updates on Bike MN and the Leadership Network. There is also a Safe Routes to School network webinar, which happens monthly, and their next meeting is on March 3rd from 10 to 11. They'll be featuring the topic of walk, bike, fun training, and our Bike MN education coordinator, CJ Linder, will be one of the speakers. If you'd like more information on that, feel free to go ahead and email Eric T at movemn.org. So today, I'm very excited to introduce our first speaker. This is the topic of maintain the momentum of the bike boom, put your club on the map. This is going to be an excellent presentation from each of our speakers today. And the first speaker I'm going to introduce is Chelsea Hoglund. She's been in the famous world of cycling since 2010, starting out with a century ride around Lake Tahoe, for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's endurance campaign, Team in Training, raising money for blood cancers, and found a local tribe of folks she's lucky to call part of her bike family. She switched to coaching that same ride in 2015 and still does this every year, helping participants train throughout the spring on road bikes. Her passion has grown from road biking to include gravel, mountain, and other terrain. That's where Utapul's cycling group enters. She started helping organize rides on Sundays alongside Matt Winsdell and Brandon Eady in 2017. The group started out with a handful of solely mountain biking folks to over 100 rad riders split between road and mountain biking based out of Utapul's Brewing in the soon to be announced neighborhood in Minneapolis. So I'll hand it over to Chelsea to welcome her to the webinar. Welcome, Chelsea.
Thank you. So today I figured I'd give our lovely listeners and viewers a peek into the beauty that is Utapul cycling. I will highlight what makes this group so fabulous, some of the ways our folks give back, and highlight our partners who make this group extra special. I also want a quick note that when I say our in this presentation, I truly mean every single person associated with Utapul cycling, because those are the people that make all of this possible. The riders, the leads, the sweeps, the volunteers, the weekend warriors, the early risers, the brewery closers, partners and spouses of our riders who miss us crazy kids for half a Sunday. You all make this possible. So back to business. Some of you may have ridden with us, others are hearing our name for the first time. So to give you an idea of what our group is all about, I will walk you through an Utapul Cycle Sunday, which is when we have our rides. Some folks arrive by bike, others by car. We're located in the Bryn Mawr neighborhood in Minneapolis, so it is easily accessible by bike coming from any direction. Shout out to all the bike infrastructure in the Twin Cities. We gather in the parking lot of Utapul's Brewing and make sure we haven't forgotten our helmets and double check we sign the annual waiver. The lot is high energy at 9:45 in the morning, and everyone anxiously awaits announcements before we can start our Garmins and get rolling. Announcements start and each rider splits up into their applicable group depending on what bike they brought, mountain or road. There are different skill levels for each discipline to ensure every rider has an awesome day. Maybe like a good Sunday slow roll along West River Road with a possible donut stop on your road bike. Rec Road would be calling your name. Or maybe you want to test your skill level, hunting all the features in Theodore Wirth mountain bike trails have to offer while whizzing by trees in its unique wooded oasis. Sport Mountain would fit that appetite. We have anywhere from 2 to 5 different groups for each discipline, making your skill level fit right in no matter what it is. All of the different groups would not be possible without our awesome ride leads. Many of them are pictured in these slides, and we'll never be able to thank them enough for showing our riders the hidden gems around the Twin Cities. All the slides today are truly participant forward. I wanted to showcase all the people who make this group possible, so although you might not see many stats or numbers, I think Patrick has some good ones in store. I wanted to showcase what hosting group rides can do for your local bike community and what you can build and empower with some awesome folks by your side. Even though truly these pictures don't come close, there are way too many people who contributed to this group. So I'll try to get a lot of them. So to continue with our day, the leads and sweeps take riders throughout the city on bike boulevards and paths, into suburbs on nice wide shoulders, through Theo Wirth on the mountain bike trails, truly covering anything you can think on pavement, dirt, and even snow. Yes, we fat bike too. Warm temps and cold temps, this group is relentless. After they've gotten riders safely back to the brewery around noon, the socializing starts. Beers start flowing, kombucha is poured, apple juice is popped, water is guzzled, whatever your rehydration of choice is, or maybe not at all. Maybe you want to hang in the beer garden and just rehash your ride with like-minded people, or maybe you're just there for the ride and you continue on your day once you're back. No strings attached. We just love seeing folks for as long as we can on Sundays. Next slide, please. So here's a lot of pictures of a lot of people that ride with us. Fast or slow, beginning or seasoned rider, Udapills invites everyone who has a love for two wheels. I know many on this call will agree that you'll always be welcomed into this group with open arms. You'll make friends for life and find new people in your skill level to not only join on Sundays, but branch out on other adventures. We often have folks that start with one discipline and jump to another once they've ridden with us a handful of times. Not much can top a roadie jumping on a mountain bike to shred some dirt, and vice versa when a mountain biker jumps on a road bike, sometimes reluctantly, to test out new waters. You never know what fun is waiting until you try. Plus, I can't tell you how many bikes have switched stables in this group, so it's fun to see the camaraderie and a chance for cyclists to increase their skill level. It's a very open group. Maybe you ride once or twice a season, or maybe you're ready to roll every Sunday we hold a ride. Maybe you want to buy a bike jersey to represent this bunch of riders, or maybe you don't, and you still feel a part of the pack. We've never had costs associated with our group and only want more butts on bikes. Next slide, please. So here you'll see a bunch of awesome pictures of our group members in the community volunteering and putting in their hard work to see what we can do for our community. So another part of this awesome group is our volunteer opportunities. Not only do we have weekly rides, but we complete a handful of events each year that give back to our community and build the values we treasure most. This truly makes takes ride hosting to another level, and I think it makes Udapill cycling that much more unique. One of my favorite volunteer events are trail work nights. COVID put a wrench in our plans the past couple of years, but during a typical summer, we pick a night to help build up and maintain the mountain bike trails we use on Sundays at Theo Worth. We're also we're a featured partner at the annual leaf breaking party in the fall. So we get those trails cleared up right before snowfall, so they're ready for us in the spring. And then closer to home has us cleaning up Bassett Creek. So you can see a couple creek pictures there. It's right next to Udapills Brewing, so we get our waders on and old pair of garden gloves and let loose to clear the creek of debris, buckthorn, and other items hindering the creek flow. It's always awesome to see your hard work pay off almost immediately as the water gets flowing. It's like crazy how much debris gets stuck in that creek, and when you start removing it, all the trash and garbage, you can immediately see it, and so can everybody else, because there's literally a drop off right at Udapills where you can go into the creek. Other events include the ever so popular grocery store alley cat race, where we gather food for local nonprofits, highway cleanup along Highway 169. We also assist at brewery events such as Oktoberfest. We hold seasonal fundraisers for different local nonprofits and host various registered rides such as the Udapills Fall Fondo, where a portion of the proceeds goes to a local nonprofit as well. And I'm sure there's more. Those are just the ones that I thought of. Next slide, please. So the last piece of the puzzle that I want to highlight are a couple of our partners who have given this group that extra special touch and given us the tools to help us grow. When you have such a large group of folks who are as passionate about bikes and beer as we are, we appreciate all the help it takes to make this group happen. Having partners in your community can take the ride hosting experience up another notch, so reaching out to different local businesses could be beneficial to your rides. Obviously, our beloved brewery, Udapills, they've given us great opportunities in partnership in the almost 5 years the cycling group has been meeting on Sundays. We're also excited to see what they have in store for all of their customers and our group alike. To call them the most talked about hidden gem would be an understatement. We couldn't think of a better space to wind down at our weekly rides and possibly, definitely multiple times a week for additional fun. They've truly given us the foundation for what has grown into something incredibly organic, and we'll always be trying to raise the bar for them as a thanks for their partnership. Another key player, our bike shop partner Freewheel. You can see a couple pictures there. They've elevated our group to new levels this past year. Having a local bike shop who offers monthly in-house gear clinics at Udapills, special discounts for Sunday attendance, and seeing Mario drop in with the Freewheel gear truck on Sundays, plus so much more, has been unprecedented in showing our riders how much they mean to the Udapills cycling community, and we're definitely looking forward to more in 2022. Lastly, I want to give one more shout out to all the volunteers and leads and partners over the years. No matter if it was one ride you helped with or many, we hold you near and dear to our hearts. And of course, our favorite party shirt wearing Jort Sportin' Radical Riders, Matt and Brandon, who complete our little Motley Crew trio and make the Udapils family what it is. You can see them in the upper right hand corner. Next slide, please. So if you want to check out our group, peruse more silly pictures, or see our weekly ride posts, you can find us by searching Udapil Cycling on Facebook. You can Google Udapil Cycling Facebook. So you don't need to be a part of Facebook to see our group. It's a public group. Many people have that feedback. Well, I don't have Facebook, and that's perfectly fine. You can always check in with us and go ahead and type that into Google and peruse the page. Everything is public. Otherwise, you can always scan the QR code with your phone right now if you're doing that. So while you're scanning away, I want to thank Natalie and Bike MN and Ted for the opportunity, and I will open it up for questions if you guys have them.
Thanks, Chelsea. This is great. And if you're on the chat box, you can see that there's a couple of links that have been shared in the chat box. I just want to direct people to that. If you'd like more information on the Facebook group for Udapil Cycling, Ted has posted that in the chat box. And then also there's a link about how to get involved in local bike clubs and teams. That's a link in the chat box. So you're welcome to check that out as well. So we do have a couple of questions for you, Chelsea. There is a question in the chat box. Do you allow occasional out-of-towners who like to ride and drink beer?
Absolutely. All you need is a waiver. It's online, takes 2 seconds to sign, and you can ride with us anytime you want for the entire year. So if you're coming our way for a weekend, maybe you're doing a concert at the Excel or Target Center, you're taking a flight and you're like, you know what, I kind of want to ride my bike too. Come hang out with us on a Sunday. Everyone is welcome. Or if you need to borrow a bike, you can always put it up in there and say, hey, I'm coming into town and I need a bike. Does anybody have one? I guarantee you people will say yes.
That's great. That's a good way to welcome people to your group, and it sounds like it's a really large group and an open, welcoming group. And I like the fact that you're able to post up a question about getting people connected with a bike. There was also a question about getting connected with the helmet and whether that's a requirement for your ride.
Yep. So helmets are a requirement. We do that for safety, and it's one of those rule of thumbs when you're cycling. So we do have people that have extra helmets with them if you forget yours. So always ask around. Don't just say, oh shoot, I forgot my helmet, and leave. Most of the time there's somebody with something for you. But yes, we do want you to wear a helmet when you ride with us.
Good to know. That's good information for people to have if they're interested in joining your group for a ride. There's another question in the chat box here. Do all of the different rides return to the brewery at the same time so families could split up and ride and then return to the brewery?
That is a good question, and we do have that often. We see maybe dad go in the sport row group that rides a little bit faster, and we have mom and daughter who want to ride faster on mountain bikes, so they're in the sport mountain. And we do all end up getting back to the brewery around noon, maybe 5 minutes before, 5 minutes after, but it's usually right on time at noon. The road rides range anywhere from like 20 miles to 35 miles, depending on how fast the group is going. And then the mountain bike rides usually do a couple loops at Theo. Some of the faster rides get an extra loop in, and then some of the party pace rides, they might do a couple loops and come right back. So it's very fluid too. Truly, if people are feeling like, hey, I had a hard bike day yesterday, can we just do a couple? The leads are way fluid in that, where they will kind of work with the group and see what the group wants to do. So it's very open.
Wonderful. We have a couple more questions coming in through the chat box here. There's a question about whether rides are only held on Sundays and if they're year-round.
Yep, so they are year-round. The only time we don't have rides are during sometimes COVID spikes, where we just think it's a better idea for us to hang out and do solo rides, or over holidays sometimes we won't have them, but we do a huge destination ride over 4th of July. So Some holidays we end up doing it. It's just always a good idea to check back on the page to see what's going on. But it is year round. We do fat biking. Once fat biking's done, we'll move to road cycling since there's melt going on with the mountain. And then when the melt is done, then the mountain bikers come out, and we have road and mountain during the summer. So we try to get in as many Sundays as we can. We do only do Sundays as our organized ride, our official Utapil cycling ride, but we also see people go out every other day of the week posting up on the page, hey, does anybody ride on Tuesday? Does anybody have open time on Friday? Meet at the brewery and then go riding. And that's why we love this group, because yes, we only have rides on Sundays official, but there's always a group that wants to ride a different day, and so it doesn't hurt to post it and see what people say.
That's great. What a great way to bring people together, especially during this time when people may be feeling a little bit disconnected and they want a chance to get connected with other people. You are getting a little flack on the chat in the chat box here about there's actually fat biking is done, as though it should never be done, and maybe it continues never ending. Life. So,
That's true. Dirt fat bike is also super fun.
Yeah, so there's that, and there's kudos for presenting such a great model for breweries around Minnesota that might choose to use this as a model. So one of the questions very specific to your ride, what time does the ride start on Sunday? It looks like maybe they're at 10 a.m.
Yep,
Sunday.
we meet at 9:45. We meet at 9:45, do announcements right before 10, and then we usually kick off at 10 a.m.
Okay, wonderful. One other question from the chat box here. How did the relationship begin with Utapil Cycling? Did they approach you, or was it vice versa?
I think it was Matt and Brandon, and oh gosh, it was so long ago, approached Utapils, and then we all just decided to make it a thing. But also at the same time, the brewery was, Utapils has always been open to doing as much as they can in their community. If you go even to their webpage, they have something every single day: cribbage, yoga, trivia nights. Like, they're always looking for something to fill in each day. So I feel like that whole organic piece, like us wanting to do something with them, Utapils wanting to do something on Sundays or on a weekend day that's when they don't have events going on, it just like came together to be this perfect partnership where let's do max community involvement as much as possible.
Very cool. There's one serious question here in the chat box. I'll throw this at you, and then there is one closing comment I'd like to make, and then we'll transition to speaker number 2. So one of the questions here is about insurance. Is this part of Utapil's insurance policy? And so I guess if you'd like to speak to that, if you do have that information, then that would be, I think, interesting for people to know.
So you actually sign a waiver releasing all liability from everything. So we had to do that because our rides were getting so big. So we are affiliated with Utapils, but it is not something where like Utapils employees organize or that they organize. This is us organizing it, and our station is at the brewery. And since we're at the brewery, you sign a liability form releasing everything from them. So it's just you yourself coming, riding, and if that helps, I guess. But that's why you sign an annual waiver every year, making sure that you're releasing all liability.
Okay, I wanted to just bring one other person from the participants on the webinar to speak for a moment about insurance, and I want to just welcome Doreen Greeley to the call.
Hi, I don't want to go into this deeply, but you can still get sued even if you have a waiver. And that is a big concern, and probably a concern for business and ride leaders. TCBC has insurance, Bike and Men has insurance. So we can talk about this offline.
Sure. It's something to think about. Once you get so big, you kind of have to start, figuring out these things. It's not just a group of friends anymore. Now it's like Oh, it's a huge community. So absolutely, it's something to definitely bring up. I appreciate it.
So thanks for the question, Dorian, and for offering up some support for local bike ride. And here's the the other fun comment that was in the chat box. You know, we're all over the board with chat box comments and questions and things like that. That's kind of how these webinars go. But one other thing just to close out this segment is there's a bicycle friendly business opportunity that UDPILs might consider. And this would be an excellent place for, since people are already biking there, it's a hub for bicyclists. If you'd like to consider that opportunity through the League of American Bicyclists. So that's something I just want to put a plug out there. Maybe we can get a link in the chat box to the bicycle friendly business opportunity if you or others on the webinar that are interested in that and are meeting at businesses and would like to get connected in that way are welcome to look into that a little bit further. So thank you so much, Chelsea, for your presentation or for taking questions. We are excited to hear about this model that you presented today. And we have one other speaker today, and then we'll take some questions at the very close of the webinar if you think of another question along the way that you'd like to ask Chelsea. Our second speaker today is Patrick Stephenson. And many of you have heard him speak on this webinar before. You may have participated in 30 Days of Biking. I will go ahead and welcome him to the panel here on the webinar, and he can share a little bit more about himself and his program. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. So I'll start with the intro slide because I generated my own intro. I am the co-founder of 30 Days of Biking and of the Joyful Riders Club. So 30 Days of Biking is a pledge to ride your bike every day in April and share your adventures online. Started in 2010 with a tweet. And then the Joyful Riders Club is sort of like the local club that has formed outside of this in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And that started in 2016. And it just started with monthly rides. And then we've kind of taken a break over the pandemic period just because we were like, oh my God, how do you balance riding in a pandemic? So our ride schedule has been a little bit slower, but we're still kind of picking back up and getting back to it. Altogether, I've been organizing rides for 12 years with my friend Mario, who actually also supports UDPIL cycling, which is awesome. Shows up with the donuts. He's known as the ambassador of good times. So it's been the Joyful Riders Club and 30 Days of Biking are kind of a good partnership that I have with Mario. For me, it's all about like collaboration and partnerships and friendships and the awesome people that you get to work with as a result of organizing these things. This is an estimate, but it's been 12 years now. So I estimate we've done about 200 plus rides together, ranging from 2 people to 600. So it's been very small to very big. And once I got to 600, we were like, holy crap, maybe like pull it back a little bit. It's very overwhelming. So that's changed the way we have organized and approached rides, which I will get into later. So the logos down there on the bottom are the 30 Days of Biking logo and the Joyful Riders Club logo. And that's me at the front of a ride that happened recently. Next slide, please. So I just put together, creating collages is very hard, I found, making them look good. But I put together some photos from recent rides. This one on the top left is the Leftovers ride that we do every November, where we celebrate Black Friday by sharing leftovers and building a fire and like coming together and celebrating the year. We took 2020 off and did like a warm clothing drive instead. But in 2021, we got it back together. It was really fun. Met at Sociable Cider Works. Toward the end of the year, we also did a series of rides that were all about local candidates running for Park Board and other offices. So that's Becky Alper right there, who ran for Park Board and won. Pretty cool. And then that right down here on the bottom left is our ride for Risa Hustad. The one in the middle there is a winter ride we did that no one really showed up to. It was just me and my daughters and Mario, basically, and a couple other people who showed up at the very end, and it kind of like dissolved. I didn't promote that one well enough, but it was very cold out. And then here at the other side is another candidate ride we did. So we've made rides happen here and there, and we're kind of figuring out how to do that again with this pandemic that we're all facing. And I think because of the pandemic and because we've all been very isolated, doing these rides is more important than ever. So it's good to have a reason to get together and bike. Next slide, please. So I want to talk about the why. Why are these rides so important? Why is a group like UDPIL so important and Joyful Riders Club? And why is it important that we get people together? And it's because we're surrounded by people who are feeling, especially after the pandemic, serious loneliness. So like you can see the stat here, 36% of all Americans feel serious loneliness. Loneliness increases your risk of death by 26%, and it can also lead to things like depression, anxiety. It's gotten a lot worse in the pandemic. We've all been very isolated. We've been apart from each other. So the fact that now we're able to be vaccinated and meeting up again and know that outdoors is pretty safe is really cool. And I think biking together is a great reason to get people together. So in this photo, I have this lonely bike facing downtown Minneapolis, a symbol of the isolation that we've had from each other. And now we want to bring all the people back together and alleviate our loneliness. So if you go to the next slide, boom, that's a big ride. That's the ride that we actually did in 2013. It was a winter ride for 30 days of biking. We've done these big rides every year and they just got bigger and bigger. And then we kind of took a break. And now we've taken a really long break because of the pandemic, but this year we're bringing it back. So we're hoping to do a big kickoff ride like this all over again. You can see our nice little logo there. So in advance of this presentation, yeah, that's good. In advance of this presentation, I kind of reached out to my friends and I was like, what do you love about social bike rides? Why are they so important to you? And I got a huge variety of responses. People love social bike rides. They love getting together on bikes. And I think it's about the social dynamics, like you're riding side by side. It makes conversation easier. It gives you a shared experience. And it's all about community too. Like we need these reasons to get together. And I see especially like things like the January 6th protest, not to get too heavy, but or like the trucker convoy. People are searching for reasons and for communities to keep going. Like we need these reasons to keep going. So biking gives us a reason. So they create and sustain community. Without fail, I meet a fabulous human being on each ride. Learning new routes makes it less intimidating. Double the serotonin of biking or hanging out with friends on their own. It's all about like just our shared energy. That's my daughter Iskra right there on the back of her cargo bike. Our cargo bike, but it's hers. She's made it hers. Next slide, please. And so in doing this, okay, we talked about the why, like why you should do this, why it's important to get people together. And I wanted to give people a checklist so you can translate these experiences that we're talking about, these wonderful rides, and put one together on your own. And it's not, despite the number of people that you see, like the herding that you think you might have to do, it's actually pretty easy to set up. So I wanted to create this checklist for you to do your ride. So pretty much you need, let's keep it basic. You need a starting point where you're going to meet. Utapil cycling is an example. You need a destination. You might just do like a loop where you come back to the brewery. You need a safe route that you plan ahead of time and that you know really well. And safe is sort of like up to your own judgment, right? Like it could be purely on paths, it could be on neighborhood streets, just a route that will make people feel comfortable no matter what level of experience they have as a cyclist. And then I found that it's really important to be very clear about timing. So like we meet at 6, we ride at 6:30, which means that a lot of people will still show up at 6:35. So you don't kind of, they say, we'll give them a little cushion time. But it's just really important to be clear about those times because then that means they'll show up. They'll know when to show up and know when they're expected. That also applies to clear communication. So that's like the timing, the expectations for the event, the level of speed that you're going to go at. We kind of go from like 8 to 10 miles an hour in general. It's a very social pace that emphasizes conversation. We really want to be clear about that because I know there are a lot of people who go to a ride and they're like, I want to go fast. But we just kind of take it slow and take it easy. We go the pace of the slowest rider, as a lot of rides say. So like we all stick together. That's, yep, party pace, boom. So in terms of personnel, Chelsea talked about this too. You need a ride leader to confidently navigate the route. So that's someone who's up at the very front. They know the route, they know which turns to make. Something you also have to think about is that people are talking to you while you're navigating the route too. So like you have to be able to balance the input from behind you and people who want to interact as well as navigating the environment. I personally am not very good at that. I kind of am like a conversationalist and I get lost in the talking. And I just don't know the map as well. So that's kind of like where my guy Mario comes in, and he is such a good ride leader and he keeps it all together and he talks to everybody. And then I kind of play the role of the sweeper to hold up the rear. So that's where like if you have any mechanical problems, you communicate them to the front, help people out. If someone's falling behind, you stick with them, make sure everyone's doing good. And then there's always the people in between too, who do things like cork intersections, communicate back and forth between the ride. We've had walkie-talkies before that have served us really well to help with communication. So, and then altogether, you just need a joyful, inclusive spirit so that when people show up, they know that they're welcome. Like you want them there. They can show up on whatever bike they have because all bikes are good and you just want to ride together. And you can see, like, when you do all this together, you end up with a guy at the front who has a smile on his face. Next slide, please. So I wanted to do a little pitch in here at the end for 30 days of biking, a little call to action in addition to organizing your own rides. So this pledge that we have to ride every day in April and share your adventures online starts April 1st, obviously. We have sign up available now at 30daysofbiking.com. You can also see all the posts from the past 12 years on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can just check out that hashtag, go to our pages. And we're going to do a kickoff ride again this year and bring it all back together. I think things are in a place with COVID where we're like, all right, we feel safe doing a big ride. And we're thinking that it'll just be like a 3-mile ride up the river and back. And we'll just go. So I can tell you right now, it's going to be at Grays. We just got to solidify that and Grays on the North Loop. But right now it says location TBA. So you get some secret piece of knowledge. It's going to be Grays. But we'll stick together. We'll keep it slow. It's all about hanging out. And then we're going to celebrate together on Friday night and just take it easy and enjoy Grays, which is a food hall. And they have all kinds of awesome local food. So that's going to be really cool. So 30 days of biking coming up. I would encourage you to organize a ride or an event and participate with us and check it out. And then I also want to do icebreaker answer. So segue, what is the biggest town in Minnesota in terms of participation per capita? The answer is Fergus Falls. And now I'd like to say, Wayne Hurley from Fergus Falls. Would you like to chime in with any plans of yours for 30 days of biking and any other local leaders too? Is there anything you want to share?
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Appreciate the shout out. That's awesome. Yeah, so we will be doing a kickoff ride for 30 days of biking again this year. We skipped it the last couple of years, unfortunately, but we always do ours on the first Saturday in April. And so that's twofold. One is so that we get a little bit better participation. And then also we always invite Patrick to join us, and he has on occasion. So, that kind of gives him the opportunity once in a while to make a visit up to Fergus Falls, which is we always enjoy. So yeah, I don't have the time because we haven't created the event yet, but it'll be on that Saturday. If not, I'll drop the link to our Facebook page in the chat. And so for Pedal Fergus Falls. And so if anybody's interested in joining us, we'd love to have you join us. We do a group photo, big group photo, kind of like what Patrick shared. We do ours in front of the Otto the Otter statue in Fergus Falls. And we do a fairly short family-friendly ride. And we end up at Dairy Queen, and they've been very gracious, the Dairy Queen in Fergus Falls, in donating free ice cream cones for everybody that participates. So it's always a good time. Then we also have one of our local bike-friendly businesses donates a couple of kids' bikes that we give away every year. So yeah, it's always a great time. And yeah, just we have a good time with it. So I will, like I said, I'll drop the link to our Facebook in the chat, and then you can kind of keep an eye on that if anybody wants to ever join us. So thanks.
Yeah. That actually makes me think of something else I want to add. A good encouragement for people to come along is on the rides previously we've done, if you participate when you get back to the destination, you get a free beer. We also have done pastry rides, ice cream rides, all that kind of thing, where it sort of gives the riders a reason to attend and an excitement at the very end because they might get a pastry or a beer. So yeah, ice cream is a good motivation to ride for sure. I love Dairy Queen. Anybody else want to chime in from around Minnesota? I see that Marty from Rochester said you're going to do Sunday afternoon rides. Very cool. I'm actually from Rochester. Yeah, Ted, I see. So Ted said, any idea how many countries are represented in signups for 30 days of biking? Over 100. And one of the biggest ones is actually Ukraine. So this has been an interesting time lately because I've been thinking about all our riders in Ukraine and seeing how they're doing. It's interesting that something like this, like social media, which can be very isolating and cause anxiety and depression, can also help you maintain these connections. Like you see that we organize all this through social media. Anyway, yes, 100 plus. Awesome. Ted says we are in talks with Bike and Men Chapter Access Hopkins to do a free donut giveaway during 30 days of biking. Donuts and 30 days of biking are sort of intertwined.
This is a great topic today, and we have food and drink included in the participation today and the topic, so this is cool. So we have a self-declared winner on the chat box that has said that they have answered the question right. We can scroll back through the answers that people provided at the beginning before the answers were given, but we have Luke from Jackson who said that he had guessed Fergus Falls as the winner. Maybe others have also chose that. So Jackson, to put you on the spot as a self-declared winner, do you have a 30 days of biking ride coming up? So just a prompt to maybe consider that if you haven't already. So there is a couple of other chats in the chat box about folks who are joining. Tony Desnick says Finland is in. So there's another star on the map. And other folks here, Arctic Circle at the end of April. A few other ones on here, so that's very exciting. Did anyone guess the answer for the question about Utapils and hear that the answer was given as part of the presentation? I held back from giving the answer, even though the introduction and the bio was
I see Ted got it right. Is he entered in the contest?
But you spelled it wrong?
It's so hard to spell. It's lovely, unique.
Yeah, that's so Bryn Mawr. Is that the winning answer? So that's a neighborhood in Minneapolis that the Utapils Brewing is located in, and there was a link in the chat box about that. So we have Ted who got that right, and others had mentioned that they maybe live nearby the brewery, or maybe have participated in a ride. So if you want to use your reactions on your Facebook, or not on Facebook, on Zoom, raise your hand. First of all, first question, raise your hand if you've ever participated in a Utapils ride. If you want to use reactions and put up or a thumbs up. How about if you've participated in 30 days of biking? All right, we got some hearts and some thumbs up and some hands. So we have some participation from the group in each of these rides. So thank you so much for everyone who's participated in these group rides. And maybe this will be encouraging to you to reach out to your local brewery to begin a ride, reach out to folks in your community to maybe participate in 30 days of biking. The link was shared here in the chat box for folks who want to sign up for that. And again, you're riding your bike every day during the month of April, but there's no requirement for what the distance has to be. I think that was the thing for me that kept the barrier really low when I started doing 30 days of biking, was that you didn't have to go a super long distance, but it was just to get into the habit of riding your bike every day, which was really cool.
So, also, I have done bicycle kicks in the air before as well. It feels like a cheat, but I set the rules, so. There you go.
So there's lots of different ways to participate in this event. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. I stopped sharing for a moment so we could really see each other's faces. There's a couple of slides I want to share here, and then we'll take any closing questions. So if you want to think about any other questions you have for Chelsea or for Patrick, or any additional discussion around these topics, we'll close the webinar with a little bit of that. So just a couple of things that are coming down the line. The Higher Ed Network, which you may know through Tim Brackett, our Green Corps person at Bike and Men, will be holding a free webinar on March 2nd at noon. This is a launch of the Bike and Men Higher Ed Network Online Learning Center. So Tim is going to put the link in the chat box here so you can link on that and connect to Eventbrite to sign up if you'd like to participate. Another thing to consider is that there is a demonstration project technical assistance opportunity, and we'll share this link in the chat box as well. Active transportation and safe routes to school eligible. Applications are now open, and more information is provided in that link. If you follow that link in the chat box, you can find out more about this great opportunity for some grant funding through MnDOT. So go ahead and click on that if you're interested in that. And also, just as a follow-up to Tim's work with Bike MN and his Green Corps assignment, he does have some opportunity to work with you too in your local community. So if you and Tim have connected about a potential demonstration project, you can follow up here. and have the opportunity to get some funding for that. And just a reminder, as far as a timeline, only 2 weeks left to apply. So, consider the timeline, mark the calendar, and put your application in. Some upcoming events that are happening between now and the next webinar on March 16th. We posted this up in January too as well. There's lots of events that are happening all year round in between now and the March webinar. In the Twin Cities Metro, there's the Stillwater Fat Bike Rally, Drivetrain Overhaul class at Hub Bike Co-op, Fat and Happy in Stillwater. So Stillwater has 2 different rides coming up here in February. And in Greater Minnesota, Ely, Thief River Falls, Mankato, and Duluth all get a shout out for some events happening in their communities. So this is not by any means an all-inclusive list. I'm sure there's lots of other events going on in your communities, and you're welcome to go to our website, bikemn.org. We'll put a link in the chat box about how you can add your event to the website, and we can promote that through our channels here to share your ride. So those are a couple of housekeeping things going on here. And we'll close with any additional questions that you might have for Patrick or Chelsea, or any conversation that you would like to have as a group about events and launching into the 2022 season.
Is anyone thinking to organize a ride now?
Or come visit us?
Yeah.
So Patrick and I talked about this a little bit when we were talking about this webinar today, since in Bemidji we have a Pedaling Ninjas group, and we like to always hold an April 30 days of biking kickoff event, and we do not yet have that organized and set on the calendar. And so I was feeling the pressure going into the webinar today that we're not yet organized to the point where we have that ride posted, but it's coming soon. And maybe others are in the same boat, where typically as you get into March, then you might post up that event. So if you don't yet have those up on your Facebook pages or social media pages, websites, it's okay. You can still get your event organized. And as Patrick shared during this webinar, he shared that checklist of things to consider. And Patrick and Chelsea, did either of you have an email address that you wanted to share in the chat box for folks if they had additional questions that they'd like to share or ask? We can share that with the group. We have patrickspatioman@gmail.com, and we can get Chelsea's information up here too if you want to reach out to her. So we have, okay, so Chelsea's posted her email on here too, CHOGLUND13@gmail.com. So very good. So there's, oh, go ahead, Patrick.
Oh, sorry, Natalie, it's Ted. I was just going to add to, I threw it in the chat box again, but you can see on our bikemn.org page about local clubs and teams, and I've assembled this list. I know I'm missing some, so if you have any, please let me know. But I know we've kind of focused on 2 metro clubs, and I kind of highlight Oedipals, as I think it's a really great free inclusive club that offers a lot to a lot of different folks. But there's a pretty good list there, so you probably can find something a little nearby, in your own neck of the woods there. And yeah, and please reach out to me. You can get at info@bikemn.org, and there's places to add your own clubs and teams and stuff too. It's a really great way to get people to keep getting on their bikes.
That's great. Thanks, Ted. So other folks who have either 30 days of biking rides or other events, feel free to get connected there. And any final questions here for Patrick or for Chelsea or for Bikemn folks? I see Kurt mentioned a full moon bike ride tomorrow night. Maybe that, which city is that in, Kurt? You can type in the chat or maybe go off mute. We can put that up here too. E-bike challenge for April in Minneapolis. A couple of people have commented in the chat box. I like to also mention them, in the webinar, in case for folks who are joining maybe by their phone or in another way, so you can benefit from this as well. So Howl at the Moon bike ride in Rochester, Silver Lake, 8 p.m. Full Moon is the global event. Lake Ellis 100 May 7th in Fergus Falls. Okay, so more to come on events that are going to be coming down the line. We'll do something like this to share events in our March 16th webinar as well for the March to April timeline. So definitely get your events posted up on the Bike Command page so we can pull those up into this the screen share for our March webinar. So thank you so much for everyone who's joined the webinar today. And we're excited to gear up for spring. And thank you so much for joining the Bike Walk Leadership Network. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye. Thank you very much.